What's up, everybody? Welcome on into press coverage. I'm your host, Wyatt Bertolone. With me tonight, Jax Falcone. We're talking about some dynasty buys. Jax, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. I'm a busy guy today. I've got, my kids, everything going on. I potted with Heath Cummings this morning. I did my show with JJ Zacharyson. I'm here with you now, and then I'm doing the underground in a little bit. So I'm like, my head is spinning. I'm just gonna
Busy
talk all
guy.
day about a bunch of nonsense, and people are here for it. So I'm ready.
A wanted man, which is no
You know?
surprise, honestly, because dynasty is a big thing that's going on right now. You, of course, in those
Yes.
dynasty streets, hot and heavy. Dino Game Theory on Twitter. I'm sure
Yep.
everybody knows. If they're not already, get hip to it. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of dynasty work recently, obviously. What have you been working on?
Well, the Dynasty Underground is something I must mention. I feel like it's already a known commodity a little bit, but me, Travis Seal, and Joe Kuvatakis have the Dynasty Underground podcast and YouTube show that is just killing. It's a lot of fun. People love it. We're trying real hard to make it a good show, and I think we're doing okay at that. So I think people are recognizing the authenticity of the show. That's been really something I'm proud of. Obviously, I do the undrafted a weekly this week with JJ Zacharyson. And most recently, our UN score wide receiver model dropped. For those who are in rookie drafts, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to be in a rookie draft without that tool. It is that good. It's over on the undroppables for .com for $20. All proceeds go to those who created it. So, Jay Wood and Dukes and all the people who created the product that you get is who gets the money. So it's worth it.
All right, love it. Well, we've got some players that we're interested in buying in Dynasty now before the season actually comes around. Jax, you're up first.
Well, I think there's a couple of when you sent me this, I have a harder time with just, player take stuff. If you give me a player, I can tell you what I think, but sometimes player takes are hard. But I do have process takes. And I think process wise, if you're buying, what are you trying to buy? And I think the first thing I think about is, okay, well, I can buy value. I can buy, a player that's on the rise and things like that. But I think if you're actually just purchasing something, you're trying to purchase fantasy points at a value. And if you're purchasing production straight up, I think there's a chasm, and the reason is the age, but there's a chasm between the dynasty value and the redraft or best ball value of said Davante Adams right now. I would be certainly, as a productive team, a team with a chance, looking to buy Davante Adams. I think his value is at or below that of like Matthew Golden. So, I mean, he's certainly less than that. Probably even less than Trey Harris. Even, in other words, somewhere behind the 205, 206, that sort of firewall, I bet you could, in many leagues, buy Davante Adams with a late second round pick in your rookie draft, especially if the team is desperate to get off him. If it costs you more than that, maybe a late second plus a future second, if you really have to spend that early second, it may not even be crazy to spend that. The Matthew Golden, Trey Harris pick for Davante Adams in a situation where he might go absolutely crazy in Los Angeles with Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford. And who knows how many more years he can do that? 1, 2, 3 more years? Dude, if he gives you 3 more years, then the buy is absolutely worth it. But even if he just gives you 1 year where it's an elite production, that top 12 to 16 wide receiver for the cost, well worth it.
Yeah, I'm just straight up here with you. These like aging elite wide receivers, it's like printing money a lot of times. Everyone wants the shiny new toys, and these wide receivers who were the best of the best, they continue to produce late into their years and just keep doing it. Your valuation, looking at Dynasty Data Lab, that was right on. I mean, he's going behind Trey Harris on there in startup ADP. He's a 9th round pick if you look at that data point.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned like the way people are thinking about him for seasonal leagues, an underdog, he's 3rd round pick basically now.
Right.
You look on Fast Draft, he's going at pick 46, which I think it's a discount there too. Like if you're drafting on Fast Draft right now,
totally.
I think that's a target for sure. But in Dynasty, yeah, I mean, this is like, if you're a competing team, why are you not trying to buy these points?
Yeah, and another player like that you may prefer, maybe like a Mike Evans. I think they're in the same sort of bucket, same sort of value.
Mm-hmm.
Tyreek Hill a little bit too. Also, he feels a little bit more volatile, whereas I feel like you just know you're getting it with Davante, whereas Tyreek could actually probably has a higher ceiling, lower floor, a little bit more of a volatile option. I think those three probably find themselves in the same bucket. Pick your favorite one. For me, it's Davante.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Mike Evans a little bit more than Davante. I like Davante and Mike Evans more than Tyreek just because, I mean, there's a chance it's a 0 with Tyreek that we're seeing that
Absolutely
right
right.
away.
Yeah.
But yeah, all three of these cheap elite veterans, just printing money, man.
Yep.
All right. I've got a wide receiver too. I'm going to follow you up with, and that's Calvin Ridley. Another one of these older wide receivers, but we're going down the rung on the ladder a little bit for going down to Calvin Ridley. Since coming back through his troubles, had a decent year with Trevor Lawrence in 2023, 13.5 PPR points per game. Last year, only guy in town for Will Levis, 11.7 PPR points per game. Not great, but okay production. Good depth piece for your teams. But he was with Will Levis, who, let's be honest, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, I think we can safely say. He now has Cam Ward. Cam Ward, not the best 101 prospect we've ever seen, but there is reason for excitement with Ward. He has legitimate arm talent, and possibly coming into the NFL, getting even better coaching. Can we see him ascend to a point that we like? Can he help Ridley continue to produce into his late age? And for him, part of the reason why I'm really liking this, he's really the only target earner we know of in Tennessee. They made some additions, but nothing that scares you that would take targets away from Calvin Ridley. And comparing him to Davante Adams, obviously Adams much higher projection than Ridley, much safer projection than Ridley. But Adams also 2-3 rounds more in cost when you look at startup ADP compared to Ridley. So when you look at Ridley, like, we're no longer talking about second round picks. We might be talking about a third round pick, depending on the team. Maybe you have to add on to that third, depending where you are. Obviously, in rookie drafts, we can see that rookie hype really build. And sometimes people are in the top of the third round and they've got a player they really like who's fallen there and they're willing to take, you're able to take Ridley off their hands for a pick like that. But to me, this is just, the price is too cheap for a player who could provide solid wide receiver production for your team in 2025. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ridley is discount Adams. I just think he's a little bit volatile too, because they did bring in
Yep.
Alec Ayamanor and Xavier Restrepo and a new quarterback, rookie quarterback, questionable offense. I never really loved Ridley. I always felt like he wasn't necessarily, the prospect that everybody thought he was. But look, you could do worse, I suppose. I'm not a huge Ridley fan, and look, if the cost is that much cheaper, if it's late third or something in a rookie pick, which actually I don't even think is crazy. I think people have given up on Ridley quite a bit, and he could be the alpha in that offense. There's so much uncertainty in that situation. Whereas like when we talk about Evans and Adams, man, it feels like it's so certain, yet people are still selling, because in Dynasty, you have to sell on age. So I think you're selling on age and uncertainty there. So you have to get a bigger discount, but I hear the take for sure.
Yeah. Valid concerns. So you want to buy Davante Adams, but the price is
You
too
don't have
high
the
in your
money.
league.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start shooting a little bit, lower
Yeah.
down the totem pole and see what the price on Ridley is. If it's a third round pick, mid, third,
Maybe I can interest you in a
late third.
Calvin Ridley. You seem, like a
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley type of your credit score, whatnot.
Yeah.
Let's try
You
and
hit
get
up
you
the man
into a
who has
starter kit.
Davante Adams and Ridley on their team. You start with Adams. When that price is too high, you work it down. You find the good
Yes.
price you like. That's
Yes,
the route.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now we're going to come back in just a moment to hear about a quarterback that I personally really dig from Jax. But before that, we got to hear from the Podfather real quick.
Oh, the Breakout Finder is live. That's right. A lot of breakout models out there, but we started it all. The best and brightest minds coming up with the definitive breakout probabilities for running backs, wide receivers in this rookie class. It's $5 to download the wide receiver breakouts, the running back breakouts, but also proprietary stats available only on the Breakout Finder, including dynamic score for wide receivers, teammate score, level of competition. You can access the full stat database, plus many advanced metrics from Player Profiler, all there, right there on your phone, in the App Store, on Google Play. And that 2025 class is live.
We're back here on press coverage with Jax Falcone. You've got a quarterback for me that I love. Hit me with it.
Yeah, I mean, when you hit me with this, it's like buys, and I think JJ McCarthy was one. What's interesting about my JJ McCarthy take right now is that it's also, I'm hitching him to another quarterback from last year's draft that I've seen, not only myself, but a couple other people. Joe Kuvatakis just made a trade for him. JJ Zacharyson made a trade for him and mentioned it on his in his newsletter. That newsletter got on Reddit. Anyway, he was talking to me about it today, and it was for Bo Nix. Bo Nix also kind of being slept on a little bit. I think JJ McCarthy, there's probably enough managers who are a little uncertain where you could put together a trade where you're moving a Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, somewhere in that ballpark, quarterback for quarterback, plus a few moving parts here and there. Look, if they think that they're giving you the better player and you have to make it work with a Kyler Murray or something, and there's a number of different ways going this way or that way where you can get the JJ McCarthy onto your roster. I think the same with Bo Nix too. So Bo Nix was a little bit of a discount in a couple of spots there. Both Joe and JJ both found discounts. So I think there are discounts to be found if you just press on it a little bit, especially with Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy, who I love JJ McCarthy, dude. I mean, he's super athletic. He's got a great arm. He's in a great offense with a great coaching staff and a great scheme. Boy, he's going to have to be pretty bad to kind of fall flat and fail completely, right? So I'm all in with this JJ situation. I'd certainly take him ahead of Cam Ward, yet on Keep Trade Cut, Cam Ward ahead of JJ McCarthy. I don't see it that way. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's JJ McCarthy pretty easily for me. Obviously, I know there's going to be people out there. I know we're going to hear it. Well, we're here in the comments. The time to buy JJ McCarthy was last year, right? Obviously, that was the best time. Sure, of course. But the point is, he's still a good buy right now. It can still be had for a good price.
Yep.
Think about the situation he's in with the Vikings. Look what they just did for Sam Darnold. And you think about he's on his rookie contract with the Vikings. He doesn't even have to be that good this year for him to shoot up rankings because of the situation. People think Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, under Kevin O'Connell. Like, this is an awesome situation to be in for a quarterback who, as you said, has all the traits you could ask for. And just in on the prices that you can find, if you have to pay a little bit over those prices, fine by me. Like, this is a player I just want on my teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, when you talk about traits too, it's like, okay, he's a winner, he's young, he's athletic, he has a really strong arm, but yet all those things don't get mentioned. They always talk about him as like a game manager. Great, he can manage games too. Awesome. So it's like, boy, oh boy, I would have to really imagine us all to be huge misses, especially Thor Nystrom, who don't miss too much to miss on this guy. And he loved him before he was a Viking fan. Don't tell me he was a Viking fan and that's why he likes him. It was pre-Viking drafting him. It was just a match made in heaven for good old Thor.
Yeah, I never really liked all the hatred he was getting for not having enough pass attempts at Michigan with Harbaugh, wanting to pound the ball as much as humanly possible in college. Like, whenever he had to throw, he was great at it. Everything he did was great. Really good and accurate across the middle of the field, which is like one of the hardest things to do. And he was doing it no problem in college. I know Kevin O'Connell's going to help take advantage of that in that offense with these weapons. Like, I'm just so excited for what he's going to do.
Yep, all aboard.
Yeah. All right. My second player, Brenton Strange. Moving on to tight ends here. Now, last year, when Evan Ingram's out, 8.3 PPR points per game. Nothing to write home necessarily, but this is a streaming tight end worthy production. Something you could feel comfortable putting in your lineup. Okay. And he was good with the targets he was getting. 13th in yards per route run among tight ends last year. Liam Cohen is head coach. Now, I know the people are going to say, Travis Hunter's there now. Are there even targets for Brenton Strange? And I think that's a very valid argument. But the thing here is that the price does not line up with the potential production you can get from him in this, what we expect to be much better offense in 2025 under Liam Cohen. Tight end 26 on Dynasty Data Lab, startup ADP. Now, I took a second data point over at Dynasty League Football where he was tight end 13, but I can tell you from being able to look at the data behind the scenes that was because of one draft skewing the data for the way they do those drafts is
just to help you out. He's tight end 21 on Keep Trade Cut. So
putting it more in perspective. Yeah, I had to put that out there because I'm sure some people are going to look at that and say like, well, is he actually this expensive? I don't think he's actually that expensive. The real price is this, I think, low end tight end 2. And I mean, you just look at some of the tight ends ahead of him, like Dallas Goedert, Cade Otton ahead of him. You're telling me I could potentially trade one of those two down to Brenton Strange and pick up an extra pick or something on top of that? Like, I'm way into that. Otton and Goddard are not tight ends that really excite me too much week to week. I think Strange can produce in a similar fashion to both of them. This is just that cheap tight end buy that you could feel comfortable putting in your lineup if you had to. And we have to bake in some potential that he's just really good and he grows and produces more than what he was even doing last year. What do you think?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, they didn't really backfill or draft anybody over him either. So he's kind of got this job to himself. I think at tight end, I love to swing a little bit more for the ceiling, but as a floor play, he reminds me a lot of, like even the Zach Ertz purchase that we made last couple of years, where it's like, dude, he's just going to be productive. And there's some opportunity for ceiling. I don't know about Andrew Cooper always says, you want a tight end who's going to be, has a chance to be second on their team in targets, or score 10 touchdowns. Maybe the 10 touchdowns. I don't think he's not passing Travis Hunter or BTJ as second on the team in targets. But look, I think he could be part of a trifecta there for sure, right? So I think he's there. He's only 24 years old. Like, yeah, he's not an elite level prospect where the ceiling is top 5, but I don't think that's why you're purchasing, and that's why you're making the buy on Brenton Strange. You're just basically saying, hey, look, at tight end 20-something, he's almost sure to be like a back end tight end 1 this year if everything goes right and he stays healthy, of course, right? But, all things equal, he's going to be in that mix for tight end 1. I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's just banking on some of that, like, it is somewhat of a floor projection for Brenton Strange, but that's fine with me when we're talking about this price.
Absolutely.
And being able to potentially move down from other tight ends that are also floor plays. That's the move for me.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think for my next one, it's the opposite. It's a ceiling play tight end.
Right.
And, I think there's something to be said for what we're talking about in terms of, like, if you look at the Brenton Strange prototype, the other guy I like in that sort of mold is even like Noah Gray. He's backing up Travis Kelce, and I think he's going to be more of the starter than Kelce is. I mean, Kelce was winding down during the regular season last year. I think, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen over there. They also have the rookie. Who else is over there? It's not Cade Stover. There's another rookie there. I can't think of his name. Houston, yeah. God dang it, I can't think of his name, but that's all right. It will bother you. Go ahead and look it up while I'm talking. But my other sort of tight end buy is like JaTavion Sanders, which I would say the floor is 0. Like, he could literally crap out on the floor, right? No doubt. So this is not a floor play, but he's even cheaper. And I'll give you an example. His value is somewhere around Ben Sinnott. I used Ben Sinnott to move from the 211 to the 208 to draft Trey Harris in a rookie draft. So literally the only value I placed on Ben Sinnott was 3 picks of moving up to get Trey Harris. So I would say that someone values JaTavion Sanders similarly. And if you're in a rookie draft where you're maneuvering and you just sort of say, hey, instead of the 3rd round, 4th round pick swap in the future, just slide me JaTavion Sanders to help me move the 3rds and the 4ths, the things that you're doing in your drafts where, I had Will Shipley, who's another one that I think we're going to hear about, included in a draft, in a trade that I was like, dude, this is unbelievable that I'm getting this as a throw-in. So some of these guys that we're saying to buy, you don't have to just go out and say, hey, what would you take for JaTavion Sanders or Brenton Strange or players like that? You can actually just say, hey, let's do this, boom, and counter back, but throw that guy in. And if someone's trying to move up to get a player, they're almost always going to throw those guys in because, like, fuck it, I don't even care about this guy anyway. He's probably not going to amount to anything. And you know what? They're probably right. But if they do, that's the thing with JaTavion Sanders. When we look at his profile, if he hits, he's got huge upside. I don't know about top 5, but he's got pretty good upside in the league. And he does have an opportunity to be the second target on that team, considering Adam Thielen and Jalen Coker are currently, targets 2 and 3 on that roster.
Jared Wiley was the tight end name we were searching for a moment
Jared
ago.
Wiley.
But I do love looking for these targets that not everyone else is really thinking about. They're much lower in valuations than everybody else. Yeah, like everyone, of course, wants to buy all the best players. Yeah, we know. But to build proper dynasty rosters, you got to find these lower level players who can be legit assets for your team. JaTavion Sanders is a really interesting conversation, I think, because a lot of people are going to say this is a really crowded room, right? Tetsuo McMillan in there now, Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, Sanders is there. Sanders, when given the opportunity, similar to Brenton Strange, was productive. When he had the opportunity, he was productive with it. It is crowded, I'll give you that. But I think there's this thing that happens where we worry about how crowded a room can be because there's multiple wide receivers we worry about. But meanwhile, the tight end is the one who stays on the field. I think of this as like with the Packers. A lot of wide receivers there. Who's producing week in, week out? Tucker Kraft, because he's out there all the time. That could be JaTavion Sanders for this Panthers offense, out there all the time. I do think the potential is pretty high for him too. When we were doing prospects back before he got drafted, we were really excited for JaTavion Sanders. Then he ran a little slow. He slid a little bit in the draft, and people got less excited about him. But this was someone that we were really excited for. Produced well in college. It's probably more athletic than he times. I think actually out on the field, he's much more athletic.
Yes,
someone with some real potential. I think. I do think this is a really good buy for if teams that are looking for that potential at tight end. Let's say you have a safer tight end that you feel comfortable playing every week, but maybe they're not going to get there too high every week. Like you are starting Pat Freiermuth or something in your tight end slot.
Right.
This could be that high potential prospect or player you go after to try and see, is there something there?
Yeah, and you look at the tight end room in Carolina, it's not that onerous for him to climb. I mean, he's listed as second on the depth chart to Tommy Tremble. Look, Tommy Tremble hasn't done anything and he may not be the starter. He may be the starter in name only, but I think the target, meaning the pass target, is JaTavion Sanders. Behind him is Mitchell Evans, the kid they drafted this year in the 5th round. Not quite the draft capital that JaTavion got the year prior, and I don't think he's the prospect that JaTavion is. And then it's a bunch of nobodies, James Mitchell, Dominique Daphne, Bryce Pierce. Never even heard of these people. So it's basically the 3 of them, and one is a rookie this year, and one has kind of done nothing for 4 years. JaTavion should be able to carve out a role. He just basically has to hold up and blocking and all these other things. Like if he can be a sort of complete player, then he can get on the field quite a bit. Even if he's not, I think under passing situations and sort of known situations where they're looking to throw the ball, I think JaTavion's the lead guy in that group.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, Tommy Tremble might be a fullback more often than not instead of being a tight end. He is a blocker only basically in that offense. So he's not even on my radar, when it comes to thinking about JaTavion Sanders. I don't think they're competing for the same snaps, Yeah,
and I think if anybody's pushing back saying this is a crowded room, I would push way back inside. There are humans in the room. So in that way, it's crowded, but to call that, Xavier Legette, look, come on now. That's not a target earner, never was. Adam Thielen certainly was, but he's also 34, 35 years old. The wheels could literally fall off that. And then you talk about Jalen Coker, who I actually like, but after that, it's 6th round rookie Jimmy Horn, David Moore, who showed himself well last year, but that's about it. I mean, Hunter Renfrow trying to make a name for himself yet again, but I think it's really it's Tetsuo McMillan and everybody else. And so because of that reason, there's room for that somebody else to be Jalen Coker or Adam Thielen or JaTavion Sanders. We just don't know who it will be, but it's somebody. We just don't know who, and it's wide open, I think, after Tet.
Talking about these late tight ends, basically, I want to try and attach some more real trade values for them. If you're in your rookie draft now, I mean, just straight pick, where do you think going for either Sanders, Strange, where is that line up for you?
Well, certainly I would put them after the 4. So I still probably prefer Fannin, although it's close. So where's that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Right? I think it's close. But I don't think you have to pay that type of stuff in your rookie drafts, because here's the thing. You get unequal value for your picks when they're on the clock, because someone picking, it's not the player. So if you're holding the pick where one might draft Harold Fannin. So late third, like, look, his draft average draft position is late third. I take him sooner than that because I like Fannin, but like, is generally like the 3-4 turns. Okay, call it the 401 or the 312. Even if you're trading that pick, you might not be trading quote unquote Harold Fannin. There could be some other player that some other manager is like going crazy for. Jordan James, like, dude, he's going to be the starter. But what they've got the story, right? Torrey Horton, like, there's a number of different types of players that they could be like, dude, I can't believe so and so fell this far. And now you're trading that value, which has an immense more amount of value than just the player that will be selected there. And so, generally speaking, I would say that you don't even have to spend that type of pick. Probably at some point it starts to sour and they're not going to take the pick, but like in the 4-1 range is easy to probably get yourself JaTavion Sanders.
Yeah, I think like actually within the rookie draft, you're right. Like you might actually be able to get done for late third, early fourth, depending on your league, how excited people are for who's on the clock at that very moment. But something you said earlier, I think, is also like one of the better ways to do it. And that's like the move in the draft, getting them thrown in to actually make the move where you're like, I don't know, stepping back from the early third to the late third, and you're picking up JaTavion Sanders. Like, I think that is the real ideal way to do it because you're really just staying within the same tier, especially in this rookie class. I don't know about you, but like for me, it's been like it's Genty, then there's like a group of 5, then there's like another 6, and then it's like we're wide open. We're getting pretty wide open after that point, and it's just a really big flat tier. So just like moving around in those general areas of the draft, once we get past a certain point, picking up players like this, I think, is just a winning move in general.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree. Yeah, I felt like I moved into that tier and spent a small amount, but if I'm at the 2-0, the 301 to the 307 or the 301 even to the 311, like you point out, like that move doesn't really affect me too much. Generally, I mean, you're probably not going to get the guy you want. You'll get some other guy that probably turns out to be better than the guy you wanted anyway. So, right. So you're ready to be wrong. You take the other guy, you move down a little bit, you get JaTavion. Probably to go from the 301 to the 311, I probably need more than JaTavion. But even if you did that, it wouldn't be a nutso move. It wouldn't be nutso at all.
Yeah. All right. I've got one more player we're going to talk about. That's Will Shipley, 4th round pick for the Eagles in 2023. He's a good athlete. 90th percentile speed score, which I don't know if everybody was expecting when he was coming out of college, but he's a legit good athlete. Now, obviously has not gotten much run in the NFL so far, playing behind Kenneth Gainwell. And last year also, we had Saquon Barkley eating up all the touches in that backfield. The Eagles let Kenneth Gainwell walk. They only bring in A.J. Dillon, who might be one of the worst running backs in the NFL, for being honest. I don't know if people realize Will Shipley is the backup running back for the Eagles. RB74 on Dynasty Data Lab, RB79 Dynasty League Football Startup ADP. Like, these are nothing prices. We're talking about like moving around in the 3rd round for a player like this. You could move back a spot and get Will Shipley, I think, in the 3rd round, like one spot, and get him added on to do it because like the price is so cheap for him. And, I don't know if Will Shipley is going to be any good. If he gets an opportunity, I don't know if he's going to be any good. I don't know if he's going to produce this year. The point is that he's the backup running back to Saquon Barkley right now, and he might get that chance. And when he gets that chance, you're probably going to get a good return on your investment. And that's really what's going on here for me, is that this is kind of just a play for working that kind of dynasty stock market, as we would say, where I think if he gets a chance, he's going to be worth something. He may not even have to get the chance to be worth something, because when the season rolls around and people realize he is the RB2 to Saquon Barkley, he's going to have a value jump, in my opinion, because I feel like the only reason why he could be down this far is if people don't realize that he is actual Saquon's backup, which I believe he is. I mean, maybe A.J. Dillon resurgence. Who knows? Crazier things have happened, but I'm pretty sure that it's Will Shipley.
It's one of them. It's one of them for sure. And if it's A.J. Dillon, it won't be for long. So, he's just not, as you point out, he's not good. So I totally agree. I made a trade just like what we were talking about. I think I traded like the 312 for the 403 or 404. I gave up Kareem Hunt and got Will Shipley. So it was like, there might have been something else in there, but I don't even think so. That was the gist of the trade. It was like rearranging the deck chairs. It's like the shell game where all of a sudden you moved everything around and then, oh, look, I've got Will Shipley. See you later. It's like that was kind of the deal that, and the other manager knew I kind of liked Will Shipley, or kind of knew he had some value, which was he was using the sort of valuable shiny object of Will Shipley as the thing to get his trade done so he could move up. He moved up. He got a good player. I missed out on a little bit of a tier. So maybe I lost, who knows? But actually, we don't know, because all those players in that range are probably nobody anyway. And so isn't likely Shipley. Yep. But the point of the matter is that, yeah, I've got another sort of backup running back in tow. And as Scott Connor always says, any running back on a 53 is someone you want to roster. And he could be the next man up. And Lord knows I am not praying or prognosticating Saquon Barkley injuries right now. But if it were to happen, they'd have to do something. And I think it would start with centered around Will Shipley.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's really all is that this is a very cheap running back. I mean, I'm looking at like Dynasty Data Lab startup ADP right now, and the players he's listed on, like, I mean, same round as Jalen Polk. Like, what are we doing? I'd much rather have Will Shipley at this point. Like, you know, Aronde Gadsden. Like, I mean, sure. I mean, like, there's some potential there for Aronde Gadsden, but
yeah,
he's a 4th round rookie draft potential, you know, sometimes in the 5th. I've seen him.
Yeah.
I took him in a 5th round.
I love Aronde Gadsden in those areas for sure. Yeah.
I would much rather have the running back, which we know can be one of the biggest value jumps in all of Dynasty fantasy football.
Bingo.
We know that RB2 is basically the most replaceable position in fantasy, and especially in Dynasty, because you can buy them really cheaply like this, because there's a potential this dude could be in your lineup, and he was basically free at this point in the year. This price might change as the season draws near, as depth charts get solidified, which I expect it to in this backfield. It's just a really good process play, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. And feels like every year, like, you know, whether it's a Bucky Irving type or Kyron Williams, who, if you remember, Kyron was not a first round pick. Excuse me, not a rookie that year that he jumped. He was actually like somewhere around RB 70. So similar to Will Shipley right now. The value was almost zero for Kyron.
He was on waivers in some leagues.
Bingo. He was, you know, look, I got Kareem Hunt last year in so many leagues. I literally just picked him up. Like, I don't know, why is he on the, you know, he was a running back not on a 53 at that point when I was picking him up for free, really. But it's like, if he gets on a roster, it might work. I had him on a number of leagues where I was just like, I'm not dropping a running back. I'd rather hold the running back. And, you know, like, I've seen Cam Akers on a few like waivers, like, scoop that up. You know, you just, I'm not thinking that Cam Akers is going to be something, but he could be Kareem Hunt from this past year, where Kareem Hunt was like, you know, RB1 or RB2 in like 7 of 10 weeks that he was starting. Like, he was printing money, you know, and you got him for zero. Same thing with Kyron Williams. It could be it's probably not Will Shipley, but there probably will be a player of his value and archetype that does have that type of value this coming season. We just don't know who it is. So get a bunch of them.
Yeah, you just want to take shots on these archetypes of running backs, right? Basically, that is the takeaway from here if you're going to take something.
Jalen Polk is worthless. You don't want him on your roster. No, he's actually a net negative on your roster because he's shown
you could have someone else there.
You could have somebody else. That's exactly right. And so those are roster cloggers. That's a huge deal. And, you know, yes, you want to get them off your roster. And you know what? Who else could be roster cloggers, depending on your format, is basically the guys we mentioned, which is like, you know, Brenton Strange, JaTavion Sanders, and Calvin Ridley. By the way, you know, depending on how your roster is set up, those could be guys that are actually preventing you from having another running back. So you want to look at the production. I think, you know, JaTavion's an upside swing only if it's deep. I'm not looking to squeeze him into a lineup where I'm making tougher decisions on other running backs. I'm talking about deeper leagues. Brenton Strange, I'm assuming that's a production sort of desperation. I need to get him in there play, not necessarily a roster construction play. So yeah, all these things fit into other bits of conversation, but I totally love where you were going with Brenton Strange. Don't take it the wrong way.
No, knowing your league is so important here. Everybody out there, if you want specific questions about trades stuff, I'm sure me, Jax, we'd be happy to help you when it comes to these kinds of these specifics, league settings, which is hard to get into all of them when we're talking about this kind of stuff. But yeah,
that's right.
If you are in a 10-team start 9 league, like Calvin Ridley might not be the target for you because how often does he actually make your lineup, right? Like knowing that kind of information is so vital. When you come with trade questions, that's so important. Obviously, it's hard to get into all of those here. But yes, league settings, so important. It's, you know, having all these running backs, obviously way better in deep leagues where you can actually use them, you know?
Right.
Like, so really important to know But that's a great, I think, moment to end on, Jack. So that's some really good information. I really appreciate you coming on here with me. Please, before we get out of here, remind everybody where to find you, all your work, all of those things.
Yeah, undroppables.com, on Twitter, Dino Game Theory, and check out the 2 pods, Undrafted and Dynasty Underground. Rockin'.
Love it. Appreciate you for being here. Everybody out there, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at WyattB_FF. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to everything under the Roto Underworld tree. We've got Fast Draft, we've got press coverage, we've got the Player Profile channel, everything, all the different shows there. You're liking, subscribing, doing all those things. Make sure you're drafting on Fast Draft, all that stuff. I appreciate y'all. We'll see you next time.